Hello, scholars. This is the professor speaking, and I welcome you to Hi, That's Scary, a podcast that utilizes cannabis to analyze horror cinema. The title of today's lecture is I Hate It Here, Part 2. Today we'll be continuing our discussion on Humanoids From The Deep. We finished last time on Slattery and his gang of racists blowing up Johnny Eagle's house with a single Molotov cocktail. One beer bottle made a whole house blow up. This is a new lecture, but am I still going to ramble on about this random mass explosion? Yes, because it's stupid. What else is stupid? Your professor. So last lecture I had mentioned creepy girl that was staring at Peggy and Jerry when they were making out, and then went with Tommy later. My brain just didn't make the connection that was Linda. So I'm telling y'all now, voyeur girl is Linda. Moving on to post-house going boom, and when I say post, I mean as it is exploding, Johnny, Tommy, and Linda manage to escape without getting burned or blown up. They run to the water because that tends to help keep things from catching ablaze. The house is in flaming pieces and the racists are gone, but are the trio safe? No, there is angry seaweed nearby that's springing to attack. Tommy starts shooting at them and is taken underwater by a creature. Tommy ain't feeling like dying though, and stabs it a bunch of times because he is smart and follows the rule of always carrying at least 2 items that can be used as a weapon at all times. I'm not saying this sarcastically, please actually do that. It doesn't have to be a weapon. Keys, heavy purses, travel bottles of cologne or perfume, cell phone, that all counts. Tommy is able to stab his way into the monster, letting him go, but is soon grabbed again. Johnny throws something, it's dark, I can't tell what, at the things. He then also starts shooting, because everyone has guns here. Linda runs away and is chased. She manages to get to her car, which is promptly attacked by the creature. She drives off and it holds on, getting on the roof. It ends up grabbing at her, causing her to swerve, driving them off a bridge to, I shit you fucking not, fall, I don't even think it was 50 feet, to explode. I'm dead ass, it explodes. This is like the 3rd explosion of this movie. Linda dead, y'all. Back at the docks, Dr. Susan attempts to rent a boat, only for the rental person to tell her going out on the water isn't recommended at the moment. She walks over to the men, Jim being one of them, to inquire further. This is when Johnny comes in with Tommy, who had the fuck beat out of him but ain't dead. Johnny tells them what happened, and in a nice change of pace, they immediately believe him when he tells them about the sea monsters. Like, not just Dr. Sarah, everyone. I was so worried that this was going to turn into a brown scapegoat, but it didn't, and it gets a point for it. Basic human decency, the bar is in hell. Jim, Johnny, and Dr. Susan all pile into a boat and go monster hunting. They go over to a structure by the water. Dr. Susan takes copious amounts of pictures, and they end up deciding to go get Jim's boat, which is bigger. When they're out on the water, Dr. Susan draws what she believes is an accurate sketch of the creature. You know, the one she supposedly hasn't seen before. They catch a fish, not a monster, but the camera is then underwater, panning through seaweed. Up top on the boat, the phone rings. I don't go on boats, so I forget sometimes that boats have phones. Like, that's not a piece of information that I need often enough or is interesting enough to remember it. No offense to boat people, your boat phones are rad. Jim's boat phone rings, and it's somebody, the hospital, I don't know, calling to say that it looks like Tommy's gonna live. Good news, Jim's happy. He then starts asking Dr. Susan questions, and when she won't give answers, he basically accuses her of withholding information. He points out her confidence in a sketch of something she herself allegedly has never seen. She ignores him and points out some caves up ahead. The 3 get into a lifeboat to get closer. When they get there, they tie up their exit strategy and start walking. What do you know, there's angry seaweed there. Dr. Susan orders Johnny and Jim to not shoot them. She just takes a bunch of pictures. Jim is attacked and he shoots it because he doesn't want to die, Susan. There's one attacking Johnny and that gets shot too. Dr. Susan discovers Peggy, who is still alive, though deeply traumatized. One of the monsters gets back up and is promptly shot with a harpoon, I think? We then jump to the lab. Dr. Susan is studying the bodies of the things. No, in addition to the seaweed, they have these ugly mutant fish heads that are really hard to see. Like, most of this movie is really dark, so you can't really see them heads. She says that they're very evolved. Apparently, Dr. Susan had tried warning people this would happen, but whoever in charge wouldn't listen to her. Typical, put a woman in position with a huge responsibility and provide her with no support system, so that when anything goes wrong, they can just blame her. I see you, Slattery, you sexist, racist, capitalist piece of shit. Dr. Susan has another doctor grab a projector, and she gives the rundown on her research. In short, they injected tadpoles with this thing called DNA-5 in order to figure out how to up the fish population. These tadpoles ended up escaping. Higher-ups didn't let Dr. Susan report it, which is how we got the creatures. So this is entirely Slattery's fault. Let's add in the fact that the creatures view men as competition and women as incubators. Slattery's decisions lead to this happening. If it wasn't obvious before, these white men are dangerous. And now a word from our sponsor. Boom, it's the Salmon Festival, and we're back to the small town street fair. Miss Salmon and a radio host are there. There's some miscellaneous small town carnival fair thing shots to establish how much shit is there to fuck up. No other reason. There's some dancing. It doesn't add anything to the plot. It's like a montage. We switch then to a nice house with a fireplace and a woman with a baby. It's Carol and her child. Something is outside, watching them through the window. We see this to be reminded of their existence because it goes right back to the Salmon Festival where the monsters are rising from the water. The men from the docks earlier, when Johnny had gotten back, had gone monster hunting as well and found nothing. Jim, Johnny, and Susan arrive with a seaweed body for reasons. All of a sudden, a creature pops through the boardwalk, causing it to split open with the wood hitting the water. Johnny shoots it. More pop up, and Johnny keeps shooting. The festival gets overrun by these things. People are grabbed, men killed, countless women assaulted. It just goes on like this for a bit, with some people being able to run away. The cop from earlier ends up calling for backup because for some reason he's like one of the only cops there. I'm from a small town. They don't just assign 1 or 2 cops to a nighttime street fair. They need at least 1 for the drunk people, 1 for the kids that get lost from their parents, and 1 for all the rest of the shit that could go wrong. While waiting for backup, someone gets their head ripped off. Like, off. They ain't got no head no more. Dr. Susan runs to Jim's boat and starts spreading gasoline in the water. The radio host from earlier is killed, and Miss Salmon books it. She's chased and manages to fight the monster off with a rock. One of the creatures gets lit on fire, and it falls in the water. There's a child hanging on to the fallen bit of boardwalk, one of the monsters being in the water at the bottom, slowly climbing up towards them. Johnny swoops in and shoots it. Slattery comes over and goes to help bring the kid up. As he's doing so, a creature bites him on his leg, and he ends up hanging on the wood while the child is brought to safety. Johnny shoots this one too. Slattery hangs there for a bit, and it's very apparent that Johnny is contemplating just letting him fall in the water, which he should have. Johnny's a better person than I am, though, and he helps Slattery get back up on the boardwalk. Not gonna lie, Johnny kinda lost points with me for this. Like, how dare he have the audacity to spare the life of the man that killed his dog? his innocent dog. Maybe this makes me a bad person, but I'm not at all going to rescue someone that murdered my dog. The only purpose of saving Slattery, aside from the constant brown person turns the other cheek after the horrific abuse thing, was so that he could kill one of the monsters and save a woman from them. Water's on fire, so the creatures that are in it start cooking. One of them ends up going after Dr. Susan and is promptly shot by Jim. It crawls away. Someone says something, don't know what. Yes, I'm still mad about the subtitles, but the gist of it is to send Jim to his wife for reasons. As he leaves, we get to see a bunch of people just beating the fuck out of one of the monsters. The reasons Jim had to go was that while all of this was going on, Carol was dealing with some bullshit of her own. She's just in her house, all good, when the baby starts crying. And not just crying, it was one of those scream cries. This is likely because there were terrifying creatures outside the window that's coming for them. Carol picked up the baby and walked to the door, locking it. A monster starts breaking into the house. Carol runs, puts the baby in a closet, and locks it, grabs a knife, and turns out the lights. Such smart, tactical moves, Carol. That locked closet is the safest place that baby could have been. She immediately goes for a weapon. This is her house, so she knows where everything is and has that advantage in the dark. Genius. Creatures start breaking the windows and doors down. Carol fights like hell. She runs, but she stabs them a whole bunch. She kills these things that are attacking her home by herself with a kitchen butcher knife. She actually ends up almost stabbing Jim, who gets there right as Carol has done all the hard work. Go Carol! The next day, Carol and Jim walk the boardwalk, surveying the destruction. The place is a wreck, and repairs are going to be so expensive. There was hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage there easily. They end up talking to a random town guy. Jim asks about Dr. Susan as he hadn't seen her since the night before. The man lets him know that she disappeared. They don't know where she is. We cut then to Dr. Susan in a lab with Peggy. Peggy, who is pregnant and in labor. Yes, the assault resulted in offspring. Offspring that bursts through her womb, a direct ripoff of Alien, but with more overt sexual violence. That's how they end this. With a mutant seaweed baby popping through Peggy's uterus and a bunch of screaming. It's time for some conclusions, scholars, and here's mine. It's very obvious where things were taken over by the other director. The scenes with more graphic nudity ended up feeling very disconnected with other parts of the movie. There's some really cool elements to this film. Dr. Susan and Carol are both strong and intelligent women. Dr. Susan is shown to be outspoken, cunning, and confident. Carol, what little screen time she has, is a fucking badass. Johnny Eagle, though the name gives me pause because it feels really stereotypical, is native representation. There's so little of that. He manages to end up avoiding the brown scapegoat narrative when he brings back the body of a brutally beaten white man. He wants to sue for the land that rightfully belongs to his people. He deals with racist and mutant man-fish plants in the same day. He's even a good guy and doesn't let the racist die. The fact that there were white characters on Johnny's side is something to note. Not just white characters, white men, the ones with the most privilege and sway. There's this overall commentary on capitalism, its stranglehold on small-town America, and how it ends up being a cycle. Small towns need money. This small town's main source of income is fish. Demand as well as competition is high. So many boats and only so many fish. This is how we end up with overfishing. The fish can't replenish at the rates they're being taken out of the water. Less fish means less money, so they'll go further and further out to catch more fish, and on it goes. Capitalism has directly led to copious amounts of ecological fuck-uppery. The hole in the ozone? Thank capitalism. California wildfires? Thank capitalism. The reason why so many species have been going extinct? Thank capitalism. The drive for money leads to the destruction of the Earth's natural beauty. This film just tried to physically manifest it in these creatures and the situation surrounding them, with the genetic experimentation being the pollution. The thing is, all that nuance gets buried. It gets buried under poor sound mixing. It gets buried under graphic, horrific sexual violence. It gets buried under several nonsensical explosions. I'm not a monster movie person normally, but I feel like if these things weren't happening, or at least not all happening at once in the same movie, I would have just been a bit bored rather than miserable while taking my notes. I want to know what the original cut looked like. I want to see Barbara Peters' movie from before Roger Corman decided to dick around with it. I want the Peters cut. I want to know how this story was meant to be told. There's a decent foundation here. It's not great, but decent. Throwing in these unnecessary elements can, and in my opinion, in this case, does cause even the most solid bones of a story, and that's why I hate it here. That's all I have for you today, scholars. As a reminder, we'll be taking a hiatus and we'll be returning in April. We look forward to meeting with you again. Until then, stay scary.